Welcome on, welcome on, welcome back to e-rev TV. Got a special edition of some COD coverage for you guys tonight. Been a little while since we've done something like this. We're going to call this our Blackopsroundtable event. Now, before we get started, I do want to say that we were supposed to have a much larger group of panelists tonight, not to take anything away from the guys that are here, as they are keystones in the community. But we will be doing a second event to try to nail down some more people that are involved with this game, involved with Call of Duty 4 at least, and potentially involved with Black Ops, a couple guys from Europe as well as a few more from North America. And basically what we're going to be doing tonight for you guys, we're going to run down sort of a history of competitive COD play, what went well, what went wrong, where we made mistakes and where we can get better in the future, and as well as a look into Black Ops, maybe some game type discussions and that sort of thing. And we'll get underway. So I'm your host tonight. My name is Eric Wansome Pauly. I've been shoutcasting COD for about 3 years now, done a couple live events, started out in the writing department at EGLN, which was little known, didn't do a whole lot of things there. So that's my experience in the game. I've been around it for some time and covered it quite a bit. As far as the other panelists tonight, we're going to have the lead, or head COD admin at CEVO. Ian Tannehill is going to be here, and he's going to talk with us from a league point of view, as well as his career in the Call of Duty series, and also a man with many accolades throughout esports. Ted Audie is going to be here. Sang himself will be here. So I'll tell you what, I'll get off the mic, let you guys sort of introduce yourselves a little bit more. Ian, why don't you go first?
Let's see what to know about me. My name's Ian Tannehill. Everybody knows me from CEVO. Higher up in the Lost Profits organization. I actually started out my COD career in COD 2 with TWO writing department, moved on to EGLN writing department, then EGLN shoutcasting, and then on to CEVO, and I sometimes guest cast with awesome people like Eric Wansome Pauly and Bobcat and Pele. That's pretty much all there is to know of my gaming administration history, and I've pretty much been on one team throughout all of COD 4, so...
All right, so there you guys have it. Got to look for as far as the CEVO League play and all kinds of stuff in COD there in Tannehill. So he'll be on the mic tonight, and then Ted, go for it.
Well, I think everyone pretty much knows me, Ted Audie, otherwise known as Sang. Been playing COD way too long. Yeah, I started writing back in COD 2, doing various community work, then came up with AMP Esports, did the whole WSVG thing, as I'm sure everyone's aware of. Came into COD 4, yes, and did work for Pandemic. Done administration work for CEVO. I've done guest casting, a lot of stuff over the years.
Yes, and I should mention, the first time I actually met Sang, I don't even know if he remembers or not, was at WSVG Dallas, and that was quite the event there. I'd like to get back to that stage of Call of Duty as far as getting the name out there and getting events like that. So, all right, we're going to move on to our talking points here. We all have got a list of them that I sort of threw together last minute, as we weren't able to do a lot of the things that we wanted to do with the number of people that we wanted to do them with. So you guys go ahead and kick in. This is just going to be like, just a round table. You guys got something to say it, and we'll just move through these talking points, get through it as fast as we can, because I know everybody here probably wants to get back to watching the World Series. So poor timing on my part. First thing first, let's step back and take a look here at Call of Duty 4 and the fact that this game is still being played 3 years after its release. And, a lot of that has to do with the quote-unquote failures of Modern Warfare 2 and World at War, as far as PC gaming goes at least. And, they each had their individual setbacks, but... I'll go to Ted first. Ted, what has made the Call of Duty 4 sustainable as it is for as long as it is?
Well, I think the first thing you have to point to is the higher level competition. And while we're all really nice here in North America, the European level of competition has been really high throughout the entire Call of Duty 4 scene. And in a way that's almost carried the Call of Duty 4 scene. I remember back in '08, we had AEF and Tex, and Pandemic and EG went over there to Europe to play. Europe is a whole lot more organized as far as Call of Duty 4 goes, and the level of competition is a lot better. Here in the States, we may have had one or two, or maybe three really top teams at one point in time, but Europe really held the banner as far as keeping the Call of Duty community alive.
I would agree definitely that at least from a LAN standpoint, and even from maybe the stage of WSVG, with getting the Euros to come to North America for a LAN, from that point forward, really the competitive play was much stronger across the pond, and definitely people gauge themselves in the Call of Duty community worldwide by what's going on in Europe. So. I definitely agree with you there, Ian. You brought back another season of Call of Duty 4. So I mean, can you talk a little bit about getting that together and sort of how this COD community has survived, at least in a pay-to-play format at CEVO?
Well, I mean, I guess one of the main reasons why is we really haven't had much else in terms of COD games to play. Obviously, Modern Warfare 2 was not a good choice. COD World at War was not a good choice. And it's just one of those things. It's been around, and luckily we've been able to find ways to keep it interesting. I think that's been one of the things. I wish we had more custom maps and a little bit more active things like that. We just brought back the PAM tourney to try to get some things going.
Yeah, it's definitely the fact that we haven't had a good game to play in a long time. And when Call of Duty 4 came out, we saw a myriad of things. We saw an advertising scheme coming for Call of Duty 4 that I've never seen for another video game. That has probably been surpassed now by Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops, and at least in terms of their budgets and things like that. But the way that game was pushed on us and shown to us in the media was just phenomenal. I can't remember anything like it, and it turned out to be a fantastic game. We had to mod it. We dumbed it down a lot and turned it into a more skill-based shooter, and I think that's also had a lot to do with it. But again, it is sort of been, and not to get too off subject here, there's this doldrum going on, at least from my standpoint, as far as casting goes in esports, and also as far as events in North America, leagues in North America. All these things are interconnected in the fact that we haven't had a series of decent games come out, at least from a first-person shooter's perspective. That have come out to compete with the longevity of Counter-Strike or even the COD series. So moving on, in our talking points here, we sort of touched on Modern Warfare 2 and World at War. Modern Warfare 2, of course, had no dedicated server support. Also could not be modded. World at War came out, I believe, with a huge sound issue that I recall, where 3D sound was all jacked up, and also no recording in World at War. Now, Treyarch was the maker of World at War, and I haven't played the game, since beta, since I heard of the issues as far as World at War goes, but I have been told that they fixed everything. So Treyarch did listen to the PC community. They did fix everything. It was just a little too late. So, Ted, we have this promise now from Treyarch of these mod tools, dedicated servers, all of which we know that are coming. But, is it... how soon can we expect this game to reach the level that we're all hoping for? Or how soon can we expect it to reach a level that maybe might make enough of us happy to stick to it?
Well, there's an interesting point of, I think there's really two levels, almost. When can you make it competitive such that we're not playing a pub game, and then when can it mature as a competitive game? And I think that timeline is really going to be dependent. If you remember in COD 4, we had mods out very quickly to at least make it somewhat competitive, to put some kind of competitive structure in place. But it really took a good 6 months to a year before we had a really good competitive structure in place. So I would say, we're looking at, roughly a couple weeks, 4 weeks to 6 weeks from the game's release to have a really good, strong, or not really strong, but initial competitive structure in place. And it's going to take community leaders, leagues, to kind of set that competitive structure.
I couldn't agree more. We're gonna come back to that in just a moment. We'll come back to that exact same idea. But I want to ask you in particular, at least from your SEVO standpoint. And now I know you've done many other things, but from your SEVO standpoint, when we saw the first season of SEVO come out, or even when we saw the Finish the Fight tournament come, which I think was shortly after the X-Fire tournament. I may be wrong in that. I'm not positive, but we saw these mass changes in Call of Duty 4 between seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There were these big changes between modding. Also, the skill gap changed a lot. Now, in your opinion, from that league standpoint, what was the metamorphosis you saw from season 1 to season 2 and 3 as far as the competitive play and the level of play coming out of people as the game sort of was modified?
Okay, sorry, I just got that. I'm kind of lagging kind of bad. I apologize. Season 1 Finish the Fight was actually, to me, that was the most fun I ever had in the game. I think you saw a lot of things in them that a lot of people thought shouldn't be in now. Like, we had cook grenades, everything at the start, because like Ted said, it was just kind of, we just got out and we were kind of experimenting, and it took us like that first 6 months or so to get it to where it was a viable competitive game, and we kind of just we kind of morphed it into something better and better as each season went along. I know I caught a lot of flack for that, so we kept changing mods over and over and over. But like I said, at first it was just kind of rough draftish, to use writing terms, and then it kind of got into the final draft on towards season 3 and season 4, and we kind of ironed out everything there along that time. So I think in regards to this game, I like to give it that golden month at the start, because that's, to me, that's when you're going to tell all the things that are wrong with it and all the things that are good with it. And so, I'm hoping after about a month we'll have something viable. We already got our ideas down some. I've actually been talking to Ingram. He's the guy who does the pro mod currently, and he's planning on having something out within the first couple of weeks, mod-wise, so hopefully we'll get that first initial mod, we'll get the first few initial tournaments that are hitting out, and we'll run with there on everything, so.
Okay. That touched on something else that we'll talk about as well, as far as mod making. And again, we were hoping to get some of the guys from Europe and also and the mod makers on here to talk about these things. And hopefully we'll get to do that later. I want to touch on something that sort of was a lead into what we just spoke about, as far as the promise coming from Treyarch, and then how soon can we play the game competitively, and then there's this idea of the risk of playing this game too soon is immense, in my opinion, as far as look at what happened with Modern Warfare 2 as well as World at War, where people wanted to take it competitively right out of the gate, and the game just was not ready, and then for many other reasons as well as that, that was all for the game. It was played too early, it was dead. Now I can't say that the game can be played too early, but I feel like it could be played too much too early. I feel like too many tournaments, too much money thrown around early on in the game, when it's not ready to be played at its fully competitive, peak, could be a really bad thing for this game. So, Ted, your thoughts on that?
Well, competitive peak is a really hard thing to quantify. I think Ian touched on it. And I said originally how, it's going to take roughly 6 months to have what we consider good, a good competitive structure that probably the majority of the community is going to agree on. That being said, I think it can be done. It just has to be done carefully. If you look at Call of Duty 4, they had a really early launch tournament. There was that X-Fire event, if you remember. And that had some, I think what they were ailing were computer prizes, or some computer prizes, some money, I think. But there was some pretty significant payout for that. So I think it can work. But like I was saying, when that X-Fire tournament came out, there was already, it was like version 1 of the Dam mod, I think it was at the time. something that everyone could practice on, and I think that's really the big key. Okay, such that we're not just making random things to compete on. It's something that teams can scrim on day in and day out, and I think that's really the key to making it competitive, from the start. And and you're right, when I do say start, I mean 4 weeks, 6 weeks. You're absolutely right. We should not have leagues, the week after it's released. That's just crazy.
And you brought up an interesting point there that I hadn't really, thought about, as far as, having that mod that everybody can practice on. That's fantastic. I didn't even think about that. That's exactly what competitive play is, of course. So once you get that combined rule set, which is something the leagues in North America have been pretty good about, have been great about, as far as keeping things similar, keeping things the same. Of course, we've lost a few leagues, but SEVO's still around. We've had a few new leagues come in that we'll see about the longevity there, and of course a new game like Black Ops can't hurt that. And we'll see how quickly things get rolling there. So, and Ian, this ties into what we just talked about as far as the Finish the Fight tournament. And I'm not going to put you on the spot here or anything like that, but I'm assuming that SEVO will be putting out an early tournament. So. Not to get into dates or anything like that with you guys. Let's go from tournaments and playing the game too early, all that kind of stuff, to let's talk about the game types that we're potentially going to have here. Now, I realize that it's really early to be talking about stuff like that, because of course we haven't seen the game types. We don't know the mechanics of the guns. We don't know what the mod is going to be like. But the mod is going to have to be based around a game type, or at least loosely based around a game type. Because in my opinion, when you take Pro Mod, Dam Mods, Pam Mod, all those things in Call of Duty 4, some of them didn't work very well for other game types, as far as Sabotage, Headquarters, and those kind of things. There were differences in between them. So when we move into this new game, we go into Black Ops. Let's fast forward a month into the game. Let's say the game's great, the game's moddable, we've got a mod going forward. In my personal opinion, I'm a little tired of Search and Destroy, as far as the competitive scene goes. I feel like it's a little, it's exciting when the game first comes out. I'm going to put this out there in the clearest terms possible. From my opinion, the games like Call of Duty 4, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, all of these games with these, the wall shots, the automatic weapons, the unlimited clips, all of these things, it drives me crazy with Search and Destroy when I think back to what Call of Duty 2 was, with the tacticians that were in that game. Not that they weren't in Call of Duty 4 or Modern Warfare 2, but I feel like the game type would play better for these fast action, bullets flying everywhere games if we went to a CTF format or a Sabotage format, these different respawn sort of respawn rounds. So I know that's really broad, but if you guys have any thoughts, Ian, Ted, both of you guys speak up whenever you want to, as far as what do you guys think about moving away from the Search and Destroy scene? Could there be a difference between maybe Search and Destroy in North America, something else in Europe? Could we see a split on that kind of stuff?
I don't think you're going to see Search and Destroy disappear out of COD, because it's been the main game type for so long. Me personally, I'm a huge advocate of CTF. I've always loved CTF through every game I've played, and I'd love to see us play it competitively. My hopes are for the game, I'm hoping it's not something like Battlefield Bad Company 2, which was, they pretty much geared it for Rush, 44 Squad Rush out of the bat. And so I'm hoping it's not something like that. I'm hoping this is going to be a game that, hey, we can get out there and get a couple of wide different varieties of game types, because like I said, I'm with you. I'm personally sick of Search and Destroy. I really am, and I would love to see something like a CTF type game come in with, I think it not only, I thought Search and Destroy and COD 4 got to the point where it just got boring watching the same things over and over and over, and I think CTF, in terms of casting for you guys, I don't know if y'all agree with me, but I think it would be far more exciting to see. And you've got all the people that want to argue, oh, CTF is a big thing in games like Quake. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that we should follow that, but I do think that it would add a new life, a new interest, and maybe some more different gamers from other games into our competition, because we're not just playing the same old Search and Destroy anymore. So yes, I would like to see capture the flag.
And that's a good point as well, Ian, as far as bringing in those different players. So Ted, your rebuttal or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about game type, and I'm not going to address whether or not Black Ops is going to have this, what game types are going to be in there and how successful or not successful they're going to be. But I think when you look at the history of Call of Duty, Search and Destroy was, at some level, you have to understand, Search and Destroy was partially chosen at the time because Counter-Strike was the big game, and Search and Destroy mirrored Counter-Strike. I think what we have to understand right now about esports is that Counter-Strike is on the decline. Counter-Strike is not the number one game in esports. The number one game in esports right now is StarCraft, Heroes of Newerth, League of Legends, World of Warcraft. Those are the big titles in esports right now, in PC esports right now. Counter-Strike is continuing to see drops in its competitions, and Source as well, TF2 as well. So if we really recognize that we almost chose Search and Destroy because we're modeling it off of the most successful esports game at that particular time, then yeah, I think that there's a reason to change. But that being said, what we don't want to do is we don't want to force change just for the sake of change, and then have a not as competitive structure. So I think those are the really 2 points that I think we need to be careful about when it comes to game types.
That's another great point. As far as that could hurt the game early on, just the same as playing the game too early, forcing the game into a specific game type too early could also be, I won't say detrimental, but it could really hurt the numbers as far as potential, newcomers to the game anyway, and it may scare away some of the people that have been here a while. Ian, you have some thoughts?
I was going to say, regarding Steve-O's stance, I think Ted hit on it right there. You're not going to see us force a game type early. I mean, I don't think you're going to see probably a viable competition for at least like a month or so, and I think we're going to spend that month there ahead of time just playing all the game types and seeing what works, and we're going to run with what works. I mean, so if we see that, if we start playing and see, hey, CTF is an awesome game type, it's going to be the best, we're going to work with it, we're going to roll with it. So I mean, like I said, you might see, and then again, you might see us running both game types. So I know Charlie Plitt talked to me a while back, and he wanted to Search and Destroy, but again, y'all hit it on the head. I don't think you're going to see anything set in stone, at least until a couple months in on the prime game type for it.
Good to know. And hopefully that'll be uniform across the leagues in North America, and we'll see what happens in Europe. Again, if you guys are just joining us, we're trying to get we have people lined up from Europe, players and people involved with the I-Series as well as Morg and possibly Ingram. So we'll try to get things set up for you guys, and we'll do this again. Actually, we're going to do a release party, if you will. The night that the game comes out, we're going to talk about it, bring out some more people, and we'll also be giving you guys some video coverage of the game that night. So tune in for that. Maybe if you guys live out in the boonies and you're not able to get the game that night and you want to see it, I know that's my case, so I'll be watching it on the stream and talking about it like I know what I'm talking about, pretty much what I do in every COD game. Now, early on in this game, we've seen these huge advertising campaigns out there. I mean, you'd have to be blind not to see them. They're everywhere. So we can assume that there will be large events in the near future, and that brings, at least in my eyes, from a shoutcasting standpoint, not from managing or anything like that. I'm curious what the skill gap is going to be like in this game, and it's another one of those things that we can't really talk about, until the game comes out, because I mean you see all these new players come in at the beginning of every game, and there's always those mainstays, the guys that are just flat out they're good at games. So we'll see what happens there as far as that goes. But I want to take a step back here, and Ted, this may fall to you, just from your writing point of view, as well as the people that you worked for, as far as pandemic and those things go. The skill gap in Call of Duty 4, in my opinion, took a huge shot from Call of Duty 2, at least where you had these 5 or 6 teams in Call of Duty 2 that could beat each other on any given night. And when we went into Call of Duty 4, at the beginning of the game we had Nexus, Phoenix, Pandemic, EG, all these great teams, but we never really hit that stride of several good teams playing against each other, all the time, that could knock each other off any night, and it just didn't happen. So what I sort of want to talk about here is, with a new game type, with a brand new game, do you see the skill gap maybe being can we sustain it a little bit better than we did with Call of Duty 4? Can we make this game last longer? Because I'm still a strong proponent that the fact that it was a two-team show for North America for as long as it was really hurt the game. The fact that EG and Pandemic were there, it really hurt the game as far as, you know, people wanting to go events, who's going to take third, all these kinds of things. So, I mean, is this sort of just is it a geographic problem in North America as far as lands go? I mean, you don't have people that could travel all over the place just for expense reasons, all these kinds of things. So if you have any thoughts on that, both of you guys, as far as you know, the sustainability of the game as far as events go, and as far as that skill gap goes for people still wanting to play against each other.
Well, I think there's two things here, as far as I guess as far as skill gap and game type, and then tournaments. You know, skill gap is an interesting point to make when we talk about how many competitive teams there are and then how many elite teams. Like you were saying, in Call of Duty 2, we had more teams that could knock each other off on any given night. You know, and I think that is something that we do need to get back to, in a sense, because you know, there was that point when, you know, everything was basically here in North America, who was going to win, Pandemic or EG. And so, in a way, we need to, in a way, lower the skill gap to allow. I don't mean that to make the game easier. I mean, we need more people at the top of the skill gap versus in the middle or at the lower levels. And we need those people to be able to beat each other on a consistent basis. When you think about regular sports and the way they work, you know, the World Series is on right now, and we talk a lot about baseball, and there are certain teams are better than others. But at the end of the day, you know, any team can beat any other team on any given day, and you know, that is something that you know, new game types could bring into it, such that we're not just talking about this repeated action over and over and over again, because, you know, with the different spawns of capture the flag, sabotage, those things could bring new life into it. But then when we talk about the actual tournaments and lands and things of that nature, the one thing I think that we really have to recognize is that lands in and of themselves lands don't generate money. Okay, so to actually make a LAN happen, what we need here in North America is more of these regular local LANs, where everyone just goes somewhere, and we need to be able to move outside of middle of nowhere Pennsylvania. And that's not to say that those LANs were not good, but when we tried to organize a LAN in Kentucky. I remember a little bit after the one node LAN, and nobody wanted to go there. You know, what's the difference between Kentucky and the middle of nowhere Pennsylvania? You know, it's really hard to make LANs work if you're not willing to go on a local scale here in North America, just because there aren't enough companies out there who are going to spend the money to have these large LANs, because these large LANs are huge money pitfalls.
Okay, I want to come back to you real quick here on that point. And just from reading your articles, your blog, that sort of thing, I think you'll be able to give us a different perspective on this thing as far as the skill gap goes in North America. What are your thoughts on just the fact of, and I realize it's going to be different in North America than it's going to be in Europe, just for geographic, you know, reasons, as well as just the, you know, the popularity of games. But talk a little bit about how sponsorship affects skill gap in North America, because when you have these fully sponsored teams, you know, in your EG Pandemic, you know, what once was Team 3D, Complexity, all these other teams, you have these fully sponsored teams, like what we saw at WSVG, where we saw, you know, several teams get paid to go there, or paid their way there, or at least partially those things. And then, you know, when Call of Duty 4 comes out, you have these two teams at the top, and then the lack of full sponsorship dollars for the rest of those players to throw together teams to compete with those top three teams really led to tons of team swapping, players playing on different rosters, all over the place. And we sort of just ended up with this huge, melting pot of teams dying and getting back together, and these players moving from team to team to try to knock off one of those top two teams, which led to maybe some distrust from sponsors as far as, sustainability from these teams. And could you just give me a little more insight, in your opinion, on, just the role that these fully sponsored teams play in the sustainability of a game as far as events go?
Well, they play a huge role, and I'm actually working on a new blog post in which a series of posts in which I'm going to sort of break this down a little bit, and how things work, I guess, how things currently work. And it's not to say that this is the right model for them to work. We essentially have a three pyramid system, where in one corner you have the teams who are competing, in the other corner you have the tournaments and the actual events that are taking place, and in the other corner you have the media and the promotions and coverage that takes place. And sponsorship goes into all of it. Sponsors can get poured into either one of those points, but in order for those sponsors to see money back on their original investment, they need the other 2 points. So, for instance, if a sponsor sponsors a team, that team needs to go to events and win to show off that sponsor. And equally important is that event gets shown off through the media. So you have this double exposure, if you will, this triangle of I guess unity. It's a very symbiotic nature that the media, the tournaments, and the teams use to keep the sponsors happy. And right now, I would say the end of the media and the tournaments is really lacking, which is why we don't see the teams, because people aren't willing to put that money, people aren't willing to sponsor the teams. Now, there's an interesting individual out who, if you follow me on Twitter, I retweet a lot of his stuff. His name is Chris Setter, I believe is his last name, Kurdak, on Twitter. And he has a number of very interesting blog posts on how we need to change the way that esports is constructed. And I personally agree with him, but with this current model, we really need to find, in a way, we need more media and we need more tournaments. I think that's the best way to put it. We need more competitions and we need more coverage of those competitions in order to infuse more sponsorships into not just our game, but the entire esports scene as a whole.
I would love nothing more than to have more events to go cover. I would love nothing more to have more online events to cover. And again, I think sort of the catalyst for that it's 2 things. I mean, as you mentioned, we have the media, we have the events, but the catalyst for those things are also going to be, one, the game itself. I mean, has to be a good game. Has to be a desirable game to play. Has to be desirable to the players, which are the other catalyst as far as them wanting to play the game, them wanting to be involved with the game, become good at the game, and then that brings the sponsorship dollars, or that brings the events, the popularity of the game. So, the catalyst really is going to be maybe in the near future for us, maybe just, how good is Black Ops going to be as far as the near future goes on these things. So, tell you what, we're running down here on the talking points here. Juvenile has actually just shown up, but we're going to leave him out of this one. We'll bring him on next time. Has run through the majority of our talking points. I want to touch on just one more thing that I actually accidentally skipped over totally. And Ian, this one will probably go your way, Ted, as well. I have my own opinions on it. Whether anybody cares what I think, I don't know. You two, yes. So real quick, one thing that we skipped over, and then we'll do some closing thoughts and we'll get out of here and move on with our lives. But going back to the game types now, if we do stick with the search and destroy theme, which Ted, you brought up a good point that again Call of Duty 2 was Counter-Strike's little brother. I mean, I remember as far as trying to get that on to WSVG and all that kind of thing, the battle of wills between X-Fire hours of Counter-Strike and Call of Duty 2 and all these things to sort of mirror them and try to make it seem as though our game was popular enough to be covered in these huge events. What do you guys think? It has been released that there's going to be currency in game with Black Ops. As far as I don't know how that's going to work between gun game, these one-shot, one-kill games, and all that stuff, and actual search and destroy, CTF, and that sort of thing. But if it's there, I'm assuming it could be modded. So, do you guys like the idea? Just real quickly, and I know this is way off track of where we just were. Do you guys like the idea of going to a currency-based system as far as search and destroy goes? Maybe other game types as well. I don't know if it'll be doable, but I think it brings an interesting element to the game that perhaps Call of Duty has been lacking for a while now. At least through Call of Duty 4, I enjoyed the mods, I enjoyed the shooting systems, but I disliked how it was the same weapons on the same teams on the same maps all the time, 24/7. And then, even if we make it so, just like Call of Duty 4, where everybody can choose the same weapons, it could be money based, or we could make it so you have separate weapons for different factions and all that sort of thing. So, Ian, do you have any thoughts on currency in game, following that Counter-Strike model, which was wildly successful? And I'm not saying we should mirror that, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't like the idea of currency in-game for other game types like a CTF or a SAB. I'm not a big fan of that there. In regards to search and destroy, certainly I think it'd be something fun to pub. I'm open to the idea, but again, as I said earlier, it's going to be something we're going to have to experiment with in the first month of the game. But like I said, not for CTF. Maybe for SD, you never know.
Ted? Yeah, I mean, I agree with Ian on as far as being game type specific. I guess the other thing with currency, it's almost like putting perks back into the game, where you have things that are I don't want to say selectable, because that's not really how it works, but you have different options. But the one thing that we have to recognize about currency, okay, is that there's going to be game defaults, and then there's going to be mod, whatever we choose to play under for a competitive play. And the Counter-Strike currency system took a long time to get right. And if we're going to have currency in Call of Duty, it's going to be a very iterative process of finding out, okay, this costs this and this costs that. So I think if there is currency, in a way, that might slow down the competitive development of the game.
That's something that I didn't even think about. That's okay. I may have made a mistake even bringing that up. I was just pumped when I saw, that the currency was going to be involved, because I always liked, as Ian mentioned, the pub factor in Counter-Strike as far as using currency goes. But I did not think about that. That's a very good point, sir. We're running over. I think 20-something, 30 minutes here. So we're going to bring this to a close. Again, I apologize for everybody that was expecting to hear a few more voices on the air tonight. We had some people cancel. I may have, fudged up and scheduled it during the World Series, but again, people said they would be here and they're not. So we'll take it for what it is. We're going to do another event, hopefully the night of the release. May bring, if these guys are willing, I'd love to have them back on. They're great panelists. They're a real keystone to the COD community, and appreciate them being here tonight. And on that note, if you guys have any final comments, Ted or Ian, any plugs you guys want, anybody you want to talk about, anything like that, I'll let you guys have at it. And if not, we'll push off the air here. So if you guys have any final thoughts, Black Ops, anything like that, any plugs for websites, anything, go ahead.
Oh, I always have plugs. Well, first, I said thanks to you guys for bringing me on, letting me and Ted talk. We always enjoy coming on here with you guys. You always make it interesting. I'd be killed if I don't say it. The Lost Profits organization and my team BAMF. And in regards to CEVO, we got a bunch of interesting events coming up. Our TF2 events, our Counter-Strike events, are certainly right now our COD event we're going on. But keep checking in on the CEVO site and the Alienware Arena site. It's alienwarearena.com. We've got a bunch of exciting events coming up and a lot of stuff planned.
All right. Also, on that note, guys, we're going to be doing CEVO TF2 here pretty soon, thanks to Ian, actually, who got us in contact finally with that TF2 admin. So stay tuned to e-rev for your TF2 coverage. And Ted, your closing thoughts.
I'd just like to thank you again, Eric, for allowing us to come on. I've actually been getting a number of questions and comments and things thrown my way recently about my plans for Black Ops, and I will say that I haven't exactly pinpointed what I guess what I'm currently planning to do in Black Ops. I have a project that I've sort of I don't want to say finalized, but have finished a brainstorm on actually this past weekend. So I'm in contact with a few people to see about making it happen. And one of the things that I'm currently working on in in just esports in general, is not just Call of Duty related, and that's more of the betterment of esports. And I think that can also help Call of Duty as well. So I'll just leave you guys with that, and if there's anything to report, I will let you know. But if you want to keep up with me, follow me on Twitter. I'm at Ted Audie. I tweet a lot of baseball and sabermetric stuff. I try to tweet esports stuff. The baseball stuff will probably go away after the World Series, but yeah, follow me on Twitter.
And don't talk.
All right. That's I am not the golden child of social media. I've shied away from that stuff. Probably need to get into it. But. Okay. Again, thank you both of you guys for coming on here and sort of saving the day for me. As a lot of people decided not to come, and hopefully we'll get at them later. And as always, you guys have been very insightful, and as I said, real keystones in this community. So I look forward to hearing from you guys and whatever it is that you end up doing. Through Black Ops, and of course both of these guys have a record of guest casting with e-rev, and Ted has done a fantastic job at 2 Nervelands for us. So just love having these guys around, and for you guys, when you do get this is not a live recording, of course, and I'll mention that at the beginning once I dub it. Thanks for tuning in, and if you guys have questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to comment on our site, and we'll try to do a little bit of implementation of viewer questions and comments on this show that you guys have questions and comments on our next show. So once again, my name is Eric Wansampali. I was your host for the night, and that was our Black Ops Roundtable, take 1. So you guys stay tuned. We'll be back in about a week here for the next one, and thanks for dropping by, guys. Stay tuned to e-rev for all your esports coverage needs, and we'll see you guys soon. We're